All right, so the obvious answer is yes. Trading for Giannis would make a world load of difference. He's a top five player. He can give you 28 a night. He can give you 10 rebounds. He can give you a solid five assists. We know that. But does trading for Giannis really make sense? And I think that in this current NBA landscape, in this current season, I think that it does not make sense for anyone to trade for Giannis. And that is not a knock on him as a player, but it's more on the circumstance that he's finding himself in. I think that in this era, and this is coming primarily from watching the NBA Finals Cup, where you just watch the Spurs play a really good game. It's obviously really good. You watch the Knicks play a phenomenal game, and you're seeing these two teams, which are a lot of times in that conversation for a trade for Giannis. You're seeing them put together these performances over this season. You're seeing their players start to form these relationships. You're seeing these teams start to find their identity. That would it make sense for a GM for both of these teams to potentially blow all of that up and to not reset, but just like to take away something away from that? You're starting to see players like Dylan Harper and Stefan Castle start to like find their feet. You're starting to see them even look like they are ahead of the timeline. I mean, on the Knicks side, when Jalen Brunson went to the stage, the first people he picked up: Tyler Kolek, Mitchell Robinson, Jordan Clarkson, OG Anunoby. A lot of these players who might potentially be in that trade or be around that trade. Cat again has been growing that his relationship with Brunson over this past couple of weeks, and so there's so much there that as a GM, do you want to make that, do you want to pull the trigger now when you're starting to see sparks of life? The Knicks are, I think they might be first or top three in net rating, high in what, in offensive rating. This is one of the teams that generates the most threes. This team has adopted the coach Mike Brown's system. They're starting to develop it and start to implement it more and more efficiently every week. I saw this team is passing the ball more. This team is using a lot of their players more. Players of different levels are starting to build relationships, and the dynamics are forming. Like, there's so much that is going up right now for the Knicks, that making a move right now would seem counterproductive, even though you have someone like Giannis on the other side. And even on the Spurs side, for me, I would argue that on their side, they need to be going for players like Herb Jones. They need to be going for players like Trey Murphy, like okay, Austin Reeves is out of the picture, but like those are the players they need to be going for. Players, high level role players. They don't need a star. Wemby is growing. Wemby still, what is he, like 20 or 21? He's still young, so like he's still developing his game. He's still developing his awareness of the league. And so trading for a star, top five player, putting that dynamic in the locker room, putting that dynamic on the court, that just seems so, it would seem very indulgent, I would say. It just seems like something you think you need to do, but you don't really need to do. And I think that one of the things I also said was that in this era of parity, we live in an era where we've seen five, four, what I think this is the past six championships have been different. We've seen a sample size where teams that usually make those blockbuster trades for players, for top five or top 10 players, they don't really work out. We've seen the Suns fail. We've seen not the yeah, we've seen the Bucks fail. We've seen who else fail? We've seen the Nets fail. We've seen who else? Yeah, a lot of these teams that make yeah, we've seen a lot of these teams that make those blockbuster trades fail. But what we've seen is that, and I wrote it down, is like for the teams like the Nuggets, when they traded for Aaron Gordon, that's when they got their breakthrough. When the Bucks traded for Drew Holiday, high level role player, that's when they made their breakthrough. When Aaron Wiggins went to the Warriors, that's when they made their breakthrough. The OKC Thunder have been notorious for avoiding making those blockbuster trades, and in fact, they've avoided making those trades. So what we see is that, like, the from the history that we see, teams that choose to allow their young players who they draft to blossom, those are the teams that succeed. Teams that choose to trade for high level role players, those are the teams which succeed. And so Giannis is at this moment in time, yes, he's a top five player, but no team which has actual championship aspirations should have any business trading for him. The people who should be trading for him are teams which are struggling. Teams like the Timberwolves should be finding a way. I don't think they have enough money or players. Teams like the Timberwolves, that those are the type of teams who should be trading for him. Teams like, I don't even like, not even the Pistons should be in there. Teams like the Cavaliers, I know they're like they're struggling with the cap, but those are the type of teams which should be trading for him. But like teams which actually have any form of like a top five player or any type of championship aspirations and contention, those teams should not be trading for him at all, because it just doesn't make sense for what is going to happen, and it's just not, the juice is not worth the squeeze in any sense, and probability just tells you that it's not going to work at all.